So the biggest problem with The Dark Knight is the fairy scene. Just that scene. And I'm going to explain to you why that is. Throughout the fucking movie, the whole movie, like the thesis statement of the whole movie is that the civilization is a thin layer, thin mask put on the true nature of humanity. And Joker's like sole destination and sole objective in this movie is to reveal that. And he succeeds. He pretty much succeeds. Save for one scene, the fairy scene. And I'm going to tell you why that scene is a lie. Because I think the directors and writers, up until that point, they knew exactly what they were doing. But then they looked at the whole thing and they were like, wait a minute. Is this too hardcore? Is this too real to be shown on a movie that's going to be so famous, so popular internationally? And they flinched. They uh, held themselves back, basically. So instead of having a movie that could shake the very foundations of the civilization and like the cage that the whole world runs on, we get a movie that really gets close to shattering the illusion and just flinches at the final second because the writers and the director were cowards. That's just the reality of the situation. Because the fairy scene, if you start thinking about it logically, those two groups of people would have definitely blown themselves up. Definitely, no question. Like, if when you think about it for more than 10 seconds, you understand that what happens in the movie is a sweet, beautiful lie, but it's still a lie. And you must never take a lie over truth, even if it's beautiful. And basically, the whole movie just ends that way for people to feel like, oh, okay, there's still hope in humanity. But it's not really about humanity because humanity being about hope and like saving others and like sacrificing yourself is a idea that a civilization has put inside our minds, because the real humanity is not about that. The real humanity is about living, fucking, hunting, eating. These are the basic foundations of the humanity, not the act of sacrificing yourself or act of uh, saving someone else and letting go of your own loved ones. And that's the reason the fairy scene would have never happened in real life. Now, the bigger point I'm making is these stuff matter because these stuff, if they had kept the fairy scene realistic, this could have possibly shaken the very foundation of civilization because the movie sold $1 billion, I guess, in the box office. And we need more art like that because we need to shatter this cage. Because the same cage that they are trying to protect with these safe, dishonest endings is the cage that keeps you docile, keeps you depressed, keeps you on a hook, and keeps you leashed. One bright example would be like the subject of pussy. The subject of pussy is important because there are billions of. I'm saying this from a male perspective, but it's true also from the female perspective for different reasons. There are billions of people ready to reproduce and have sex and enjoy like one of the most beautiful and basic pleasures of the world, but the civilization keeps you on a safe distance from it, but never fully available to you. So you're depressed, you're trying to have a six-figure salary or six packs or some fucking supernatural garbage so you can have access to the most basic of pleasures because the cage doesn't want you happy. It wants you to play by its rules. But listen, there is an alternative. There is an alternative that if we start doing real endings, if we start putting real uh, logical conclusions to these movies, to these pieces of media that are important, because art is reflection of the states of minds of us. If we stop doing pulling punches, then we're gonna have that world, my friends. The world that does respect us for what we are, not what it wants us to be. The world that we can be happy in. The world that our happiness doesn't depend on factors that are purely superficial. And it just is. We just are humans. And yeah, basically that's it. So if I want to have a brief conclusion, basically, if you resonate with what I'm trying to say, which you should, because it's the truth, dissected from years of watching media and understood by picking them apart by a scalpels. The truth is, these movies, the greatest of the movies, The Dark Knight is basically one of the greatest movies of all time. It's great because for the majority of it, it tells you the truth, but it pulls its punches at the last second and tricks you back into the cage. The point I'm trying to make is, do not make that mistake. Be watchful of these kind of endings. Be watchful of these kind of manipulations, even in great pieces of art. Be watchful of the truth and understand when it's taken away from you purposefully. And start inserting, if any of you is artist or like anything musician, start doing it the real way. The more we show the truth like the way it is, the less impact the fake idea, the idealist of the cage, is gonna have on the population. So imagine if something like Dark Knight, instead of doing the safe, flinchy ending, did something real where like the fairies blow each other apart, then the whole fucking skeletal of the civilization would have been shaken. And we need that. We need that to finally break free of these chains that have been put on us by a system that doesn't want us to be happy. Thank you for listening.